I'm Ric Edelman. Ever thought what it would be like to have your own home theater? We'll show you a doozy and reveal its costs. And how about long-term care insurance or 401k fees? We'll have solid advice for you on all this, plus a conversation with Velshi, the chief business correspondent for CNN. All this straight ahead on this week's edition of The Truth About Money.
Best-selling author and founder of one of the nation's largest financial planning firms, Ric Edelman.
We all like to daydream. What would we do if we just had the money? Well, for a lot of us, well, okay, me, the dream is an enormous video screen with sound that can shake your bones. In other words, a little bit of a home theater. So I sent my colleague Anderson Wozni to get the story from Jeremy Kipnis, whose $6 million setup is in the Guinness Book of Records.
What would make someone want to install a home theater?
Well, if they're like myself, then they were really, really excited the first time that they went to a movie theater and they saw this incredible image and story up on the big screen. You just can't get the flavor out of your mind, and you have to eventually produce a home theater of your own.
What would you say is your average home theater installation cost?
Well, most people would probably be lucky to spend $5,000 on an installation. So by the time you're done with $10,000 or $5,000, you're at the point of having some good sound and some good picture in a fairly typical room.
So if our viewers are going to think about putting in a true high-end, a true home theater, what is the one thing that you would say that you really want them to have?
To put it bluntly, the more money that you can spend on the picture as an out-of-pocket expense, the more likely you are to be happy with your home theater.
Is it possible for me to get a first-run movie in my house?
In fact, it is. Roughly, the projectors are in the $100,000 to $500,000 range, depending upon screen size and brightness, and of course resolution. And a good sound system as well is going to, range upward of $500,000. In my installations that are more high-end, of course, I might choose a vacuum tube for the amplification circuit.
I've seen a vacuum tube, but I don't know that I've ever heard one.
If I have a choice, I would choose the vacuum tube because it's much warmer, it's much more three-dimensional, it's much more musical.
How does having a home theater affect the value of my home?
It is a perk. It probably does not add any value because it's not any more real estate. But if somebody wants to buy your house and they have something like a home theater that they were looking for in the first place, and it's ready to go, and they walk in and they push one button on the touch screen and they can watch whatever they want or listen to whatever they feel like, that is definitely a reason to buy a home. My greatest expression of the type of work that I do is to put together systems which will allow you to feel like you're there at the original recording session, or in the case of home theater, in the movie.
Jeremy, thank you so much for being with us today.
A great pleasure, sir. Thank you.
Well, the first question is the most obvious question.
Okay.
What movie did you watch while you were there?
We didn't get to watch a movie.
Oh, you're killing me.
Nah, I know, it was terrible.
But he did demo the gear, of course.
Of course, we got to see a lot of the really cool stuff, and to be honest with you, I was a bit overwhelmed. And as a techno geek, that's surprising for me.
Because you are an early adapter to technology, as we know in the office. But here's the real question. As he was demoing the gear, was how many button pushing were going on? I'm wondering, would a mere mortal, would my wife, Jean, be able to operate this kind of equipment?
Without question, that's one of the greatest things about the technology. It's making it easier for us mere mortals to use it. With as simple as pulling out an iPad or a very simple remote control with a button that says TV, you push the TV and it comes on, the sound comes on, it's fantastic.
Well, that makes the access much, much better. But you're going to spend anywhere from tens of thousands to hundreds, even millions of dollars, according to what he had to say. It's not going to aid the value of the house, he said.
Nope.
But how long will the gear last? What's that planned obsolescence?
Well, somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 years.
So you're going to spend maybe a couple of $100,000, and you're going to have to do that repeatedly throughout the life of that house.
Perhaps repeatedly, and the thing that's a little bit scary about it is how quickly the technology is changing. It's 10 years today, but I wonder if in 5 years, it'll still be 10 years.
And how much of the existing gear is going to be able to be reusable, or is it a whole thing going to have to get trashed? So this is a pretty big decision you've got to make.
It is a big decision, and the one thing that I asked that said, what is the most important thing that you're doing when you're designing? He said, make sure you get the wiring right. Because once you get that done, a lot of it's just unplugging and plugging back in.
So do it because you love it and you're having fun, not because you think it's a great investment. Anderson, thanks so much.
Thank you.
How can you easily figure out how long it will take for an investment to double in value? We'll be back with the answer in just a few minutes.
At a recent conference, investment advisors were asked just one question. What is the best investment idea?
The best investment idea today is diversification.
Have a true discipline, know where you're going, and then have the patience to allow it to work.
Get a sound financial plan. Reestablish your goals.
Get wisdom and get good counsel.
Diversification. It's the same as it's always been.
We are heading off to Springfield to talk with Robert. How are you, Robert? You're on the program. How are you?
Doing fine, Rick. How are you all today?
Terrific.
I've got a question from when you were talking about maximizing the employer match in your 401k plan.
Yes.
I had set up a 15% contribution.
Great.
And halfway through the year, I had to lower it to 13% in order so that I wouldn't miss all 12 months of the employer match.
Understood.
And I guess what happened then is my paycheck got bigger after June, and and then I have to pay more taxes. Is this going to cause a problem with anything, or does this really matter?
No, in the end, you're doing the right thing. What we have to recognize is that there are two different ways employers do the employer match of a 401k, and you have to pay attention to how they do it, because if you don't coincide with their method, you could end up costing yourself a portion of the match. And it trips people up sometimes. Here's what it comes down to. Many employers, they'll say put in 50 cents on the dollar. If you put in $1, they'll put in 50% of that up to, say, 6%. So if you contribute 6%, they'll put in 3%. But some employers do it on a percentage basis, meaning that if you put in 6% at any point during the year, then they'll put in 3%. Others do it dollar for dollar, which means if you contribute evenly throughout the whole year, you get the match. But if you front load it, like in your case, you're contributing 15%, and that means you're going to lose out on the money they would have put in December because you've maxed out by July. So it's confusing as to how it works, and you need to check with your employer, talk to your HR department, and with your financial advisor to make sure that the way you're contributing is compatible with the way your boss is matching those contributions.
Yeah, nothing more frustrating than making your contributions and finding out I'm not getting my match.
Can you imagine saying, look at Robert's situation. I'm putting in 15% of my pay, only to discover that because he's putting in so much, he didn't get a portion of the money the boss otherwise would have given him. Had he contributed less, he would have. I mean, I can imagine what Robert would say to that.
You can't be serious, man. You cannot be serious.
I mean, that's exactly, Robert, what you would say. So talk to your employer, and it is as simple as that.
How can you easily figure out how long it will take for your investment to double in value? The easy way is to use the rule of 72. Divide 72 by the interest rate, and the answer will show you how many years it will take to double your money. For example, with a 6% interest rate, you would divide 72 by 6 and get 12. That means your money will double in about 12 years.
At Rick, what is the best time to start the long-term care? What's
When's
the
the
best
time?
age? Yeah, what's the best age?
At what age should you buy long-term care
Long-term
insurance?
care, yes.
Yesterday. We used to tell people that they should start considering the purchase of long-term care insurance in their 50s. Then we backed up and started telling them to look at it in their 40s. You know what age we start telling people to look at long-term care insurance now? Age 18. In the old days, meaning 15 years ago, you couldn't buy a long-term care insurance policy unless you were 50 years old. Now they will sell it to people as young as age 18 because the industry is realizing something that's painfully true. The cost of long-term care is rising dramatically, and the cost of providing insurance is rising along with it. And it's so expensive that the younger you buy it, the cheaper it is. The problem with long-term care insurance is that most people don't choose to buy it until they need it. The most common reason people call us and say, I think I want to buy long-term care insurance, is because they've just been to the doctor and they've gotten a diagnosis. By then, it's too late. The insurance industry asks you a series of questions, and if you say yes to any of them, you're not going to get the policy. So we want you to buy the insurance in your 20s, 30s, 40s, when the policy is really cheap because the price is based on your age. And you're healthy enough that you'll qualify for the insurance. And the reason that we believe in long-term care insurance for so many of our clients is a very simple fact. You're probably going to need long-term care, and you're probably not going to be able to afford it. The average annual cost of long-term care at the moment is about $7,000 a month. That's $84,000 a year. It's not tax deductible for most people. At $84,000 a year, it doesn't take long to wipe out the finances of the average American household. In fact, long-term care is the leading cause of poverty among retirees. That's the crisis. So when we're trying to figure out how to pay for that cost, the most effective way is to make an insurance company pay for it. And it's much cheaper to buy the insurance than to pay for the cost of care ourselves. And that's why we recommend it. The statistics are startling. Not only is it very expensive, but statistically, 1 out of 2 Americans who are 65 or older will need long-term care at some point. So if you're married and you're both 65, one of you will incur long-term care services statistically. And that's why we're trying to protect not only the person who needs the care, but just as importantly, their spouse, who's still at home and active and incurring all the expenses of the family. And so on that basis, we believe long-term care insurance is the least evil approach. It's the cheapest, easiest way to protect. And we want you to buy it now, before you get older and it gets more expensive, and before you have a conversation with your doctor. So if you haven't bought it, talk to a financial professional about it now.
No, I have it.
You have it?
Yeah, I have it.
Give her a round of applause.
I'm gonna leave you guys on a high note. I like to share good news with crowds when I'm with them. This is the most amazing thing happened to me the other day. I pulled out of a little grocery store lot, pulled into McDonald's drive-thru, ordered a 4-piece nugget, because I'm a very wealthy man. Drove off, guess what happened to me? I had 5 nuggets in the bag. What? 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 Oh my God. You don't get an extra nugget? You feel like you beat the system. I drove off like, ha 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 ha! Forget McDonald's. Cut my headlights off so they couldn't follow me. Pulled into an alley, torched the car. Filed my fingerprints off. Started singing songs from Sunday school. That's the greatest feeling. The only feeling that compares to that is when you find an onion ring in the bottom of your French fries. Oh, you know what I'm talking about, right? Right? You get that, you see that onion ring, you're like, drive, drive, drive! Guys, I'm Jason Williams, good night.
Why don't more people take financial responsibility at an early age as a serious situation that they need to discuss with their children?
Boy, he's mad, and it's understandable. I get a lot of that from people who want to know why today's youth are so uneducated about money. Why are American workers so uneducated about money? Why are so many people entering retirement so unprepared for it? Well, it all comes down to a lack of education. Think about it. You went through 12 years of school and then 4 years of college and maybe some post-grad education. Where in those 12 to 20 years of education did you ever have a class on personal finances? Did your parents ever talk to you, ever, about tax preparation, about balancing a checkbook, about opening a savings account? Unfortunately, the answer too often is none of the above. Parents don't talk to their kids, school teachers don't talk to their students, and employers don't talk to their workers. And as a result, it's all up to you. And by the time you're 55 years old, you've figured that out, and that's when you lament that you didn't get started 20 years earlier. We need to work harder, all of us individually, to talk to young people. We need to talk to our children. We need to talk to our co-workers. We need to talk to our friends and family about the last taboo topic in America, personal finance. Look, we're already talking about sex. We're already talking about politics. The time has come for us to talk about money. Until we do, people are going to enter retirement clueless and unprepared, and, like that gentleman, annoyed.
Are 401k plans free? In surveys, 70% of people think so. Are they right? Think about it, and we'll be back with the answer in just a few minutes.
Velshi pretty much lives in the newsroom at CNN. He's that network's chief business correspondent, as well as an anchor for both CNN and CNN International. We caught up with Ali between shows at CNN's New York broadcast studio. Ali, great to be with you.
What a pleasure. Good to have you here.
It's been a while since we've talked to each other, but you spend an awful lot of time talking with folks like me, financial advisors, economists, money managers, as well as just the person on the street. And so you really got a great perspective on what's on people's minds and what's going on, given everything that's been going on in the world the past several years. Do ordinary folks still have a shot at achieving their financial goals?
Yeah, it's harder to convince ordinary folks that they're not up against a rigged system. That's the difficulty. So a guy like me who thinks that to have a shot, you've actually got to invest in the market, it becomes a tougher argument because on an ongoing basis, something happens that leads the regular investor to say, no one is watching my money. So unless it's in a bank account or in my house, I just don't feel that it's safe. And that's tough because it's hard to get away if you don't invest.
And it's easy to understand Bernie Madoff and MF Global
exactly.
and banks that we love to hate and
right.
all of that. It leaves the ordinary American saying, game is rigged.
That's right.
Only those guys get rich and I'm left holding the bag.
That's exactly right. And even though we're going through a period in America where people generally want less government and less regulation, that doesn't actually apply to financial services. Our polling continues to show that people want better regulation, not necessarily more, but more effective regulation when it comes to their money. They would like to know that this alphabet soup of regulators and banks and fiduciaries and financial advisors, everybody is kind of looking out for your money. So that's the split that we're seeing. We know that those who are wealthy and sophisticated about money are getting more wealthy and more sophisticated, and those who aren't are holding on to their money and losing ground.
But you realize at the same time that even though there's the fear, the assumption that the game is rigged and only the big boys get rich, that nevertheless, we as individuals have to stay invested in the stock market, in the equity markets, not just in the U.S., but globally.
Right.
How do you convince ordinary American consumers to do that? Well,
I think the big issue is that you've got to have some sort of risk evaluation. Everybody has got to understand that they've got to undertake a risk evaluation, and on the spectrum, you will fall somewhere. The default position for most people is to be entirely risk averse because they don't necessarily know better. What they could learn is if they just went maybe 15 or 20% 10% up that scale, not entirely risky, not entirely invested in stocks, but if you just move up a little bit, your chances of getting a return are so much better. They're monumentally better than if you just keep it in a CD or a bank account.
And that's the amazing thing, is that most folks will always consider themselves as a barbell portfolio. It's either all or nothing, one of the extremes.
Yeah.
And they don't realize you can do a little bit of everything.
That's exactly right.
And that's how you should participate. So let's talk about it in real practical terms, because I'd love to leave the audience with action steps they can take. Given the fact that we've got to do something, we can't rely on the government, can't rely on our boss, can't rely on pensions or Social Security. Our future's up to us. What should people be doing with their money that will enable them at least a shot at achieving their goals?
Okay, so the thing that's working in our economy, even if you think the American economy can move faster than it is, what is working is American-based multinational corporations, companies like Coca-Cola and McDonald's, that do things and sell products not just to Americans, but around the world. So you should largely be invested in large-cap multinational corporations that are based here in the United States. There is a lot of fear going on in the rest of the world, but even a slower moving China and a slower moving India are moving several times faster, or growing several times faster than the United States is. So you want exposure to those kinds of markets. Europe continues to be on sketchy ground, and that's okay, but there are opportunities there. There are times in which you'll want exchange-traded funds, which emulate how the market runs, but there are times you'll actually want a mutual fund because it's a specific area that an active manager will know because they visited there or they know it.
When you have something specific in mind, you want to go after.
So if you happen to really think solar energy is a good place you want to be, and I happen to think it's an interesting space, not all solar energy companies are a place to be. So that might be an area where you want a real live person who manages your mutual fund. But if you're generally wanting to feel the growth in the Chinese market, buy an exchange-traded fund or an index fund that captures all of it. Just know the differences. Know where you want an expert dealing with it, and know where just a basket will help.
And one final element, what's the timing on this? Is this something you try to do over the next month or two or 3 or 4 in terms of seeking results, or is this something you're looking over the next decade?
Yeah, I think it's never good to change your way of thinking about finances instantly. I think you should come to the idea that you're changing, that you're going to move along that barbell toward the middle, but I think you really should average in over the course of several months. It's going to make you feel more comfortable about not making serious changes. I don't think there's anything happening on the horizon that is suddenly going to change the way the world is going. We are moving generally into a better place slowly. So you can move generally into a better place slowly. Think of your horizon as no shorter than 5 years. If you have a shorter than 5-year horizon, you need to go talk to an expert. You don't have time to be messing around on your own.
Ali, terrific advice.
Great to see you, Rick.
Thanks for being with me.
In surveys, 70% of people say that 401k plans are free. Are they right? The correct answer is no. Financial service companies that manage 401k plans do charge fees. The fees are often simply deducted from the plan balance, and the investor never receives a separate bill.
There's a lot of value in sticking with the tried and true. Vacuum tubes will give you a richer sound. You've still got to put some of your savings into stocks, even if the market scares you. And the best investment strategy remains diversification and patience. So before you get all excited by the next great idea, take a deep breath, because often the best ideas are the ones we've seen before. Oh, they might not be the most exciting, but they work. And that's the truth about money. I'm Ric Edelman. See you next week.